Everything about this week is going to be a fic theme. So for this week's character discussion theme, we have Masters of the Sword. I don't think anybody better in Fairy Tale would fit that role other than Erza Scarlet, Titania, the Queen of Fairies. And I think personally one of the most overlooked characters in terms of people outside of the main fan base. I've seen a lot of people try and like call her like a Mary Sue, which I don't think that could be possible given like her backstory, all the things she's gone through, and really like she doesn't have a lot of skills. So like just looking at them, like Urza's a really good authoritative figure. She's good at combat, but like we've seen stuff throughout the series, like Sting and Rogue showed up pretty late into the Tartarus arc because they couldn't read the letter that Urza sent them because her handwriting was so bad. She can't act, she can't sing, she gets too nervous. She has a bad time reading people. She also has pretty bad luck when it comes to Jalal. So for her character, there are some things. I don't want to go too much into overall spoilers, but we'll give, the base stuff early on about her character. Urza being the battle mage swordswoman of the series. Like, we had some pretty nice kind of like layout of characters at the beginning. Like, obviously, she was the one that led into the Lullaby arc, after hearing stuff going on with Eisenwald, and that was the segue into one of Fairy Tale's main cast members and also one of the favorites, but at the same time, a lot of people seeing as sort of the most infamous. And that being due to some of Urza's wins, but they're depicted more in a way that I don't think people understand, because I can get my own gripes on her because her whole magic is called the Night, and she uses her fire pants and her katana Yoto Benisakura a lot. Like, I always make jokes of like maybe her magic should be called the Vagabond, but at the same time, it hasn't won every fight for her, and its power is very simplistic, because that's one of the things that I think people overlook when they talk about Urza, and they say like she has. Like, I see people be like, "Oh, her armors are." She just pulls out new armors for whatever occasion. No, I don't agree with that. Most of Urza's armors are very simplistic. Like, she has a lot of like, oh, cuts elemental resistance to this element, and just like her Flame Empress armor. Okay, yeah, she fire's a pretty standard element. Okay, yeah, this armor cuts fire in half. She had one for lightning, one for water. It just seems like a pretty logical thing to have on there. And then she's got other ones like her Ten Ring armor gives her lots of different. She can control lots of swords. Like, her Giantess armor lets her like increase projectiles that she throws. But then when you look at, I think the two that people don't really understand, and one of them is actually because of a mistranslation, that being her Nakagami armor that she got in the point between the little training bit before the Grand Magic Games and the Grand Magic Games, which was always confusing because I feel like it's just such a standard thing whenever characters come out of like a training or a power-up period, and when all the characters are displaying like, hey, look, here's my new techniques, here are my new abilities, my new weapons, whatever it is, you know that it's like, okay, Urza's coming up. What's Urza's going to be? And then she busts out this new armor. You can't say like, oh, where'd that come from? Came out of nowhere. It's like every character like throughout this entire arc has been pulling out stuff because they just went through like a big training and like power up period. So it makes sense that she'd have something like that. And all it really does is it makes her an anti-mage for a short period of time because she's able to dispel magic. And a lot of the misconception and misunderstanding came from a fan-added translation where it said that she can break the rules of magic, which is not in the Japanese or the English text at all. I actually argued with someone that recently. They brought up, like, look how stupid this is. And I'm like, that's not canon. That is something somebody added. That's like me going in and changing something in a dialogue box in Photoshop that has nothing to do with it and making it a claim. Very silly. But also this scene, also, I really love this one because the whole thing about Urza, like her fire pants and like cloth armor and her sword, all they really do is they abandon defense and go for pure offense. It just funnels it all, making her attack and speed, skyrocket. That's what it does. She has an armor that she can use, Nakagami armor, in case of like a hacks opponent that has a strange ability where she can dispel it within a short period of time that she wears it. And then it's like, okay, if this character, the only gap is speed or straight raw attack power, that's what she has her fire pants armor and Yoto Benizakura for. But Urza has a lot of complicated aspects to her character, a lot of deeper things that couldn't go on a Mary Sue. If you don't know what a Mary Sue is, they're perfect at everything. You know, things just work out for them. Everybody likes them. They don't really struggle. I mean, Erza grew up in a being a slave to a cult that she actually has one of her eyes artificial because it got damaged beyond repair while being tortured, and like there's so many aspects that you can't say like, oh, it's Mary Sue. It's like, no, she went through a lot of shit, and that's just her backstory. And I mean, like, even her relationship with Jalal is super complicated, and you know, it's an emotional, rocky ground for her. Like when Jalal like got arrested, she was just in tears. So that's one of the things though. When you look at the armor itself, the fire pants and cloth armor, it's a huge gap in a character moment because Erza, like, she wore armor, like she was like this magic knight battle mage, but she wore the armor symbolically. Like she pretty much had like this chest plate on because like in her mind she was shielding her heart from other people. It was, you know, a way for protection of herself because, you know, the person that was closest to her at one point in her life betrayed her and caused her so much pain. And after that point, she abandoned all of her armor for that fight, and she was, you know, just taking everything head on and letting everything come at her. And then when you look at something like the fight over in Sirius Island that she had against Azuma, she had all these people in her mind behind her back, which people overlook because the whole thing about the magic that kind of radiated on Sirius Island from the tree and the land actually was made to protect anybody with the fairy tale mark, and it was clearly beyond what Azuma could control. So it's like, of course, like it's gonna guard her. It's pretty much what it's designed to do. And even with that, Azuma wasn't even the biggest fight of the arc. Like, there are multiple people above her. They still had Old Tier, Blue Note, Hades. Like, it's a silly kind of thing to look at. I'm gonna do a separate video going over certain things about like Erza's done, like the whole she's Erza thing that I don't think people got, which by all means cannot be an asshole given the situation. That'll be a different video. But Erza in itself, I think that she is a very complicated character that's still experiencing aspects of her past as well as her trying to find ways to fix her future from that. Because one thing, like I said, she was a slave in the Tartarus arc. Actually, she was at one. I won't go too much into spoilers, but at one point she is captured, and you know, her magic is sealed. She can't use any of her abilities, and she's just tortured for a while. And you see at the end of the arc that during all that, you know, thinking about what just happened to her reminds her of her childhood of constantly being beaten and this threatened and tortured as a slave for a deranged cult. It just adds, it's such a big like window to like, how could this ever be considered a Mary Sue? Like, she's still suffering over her own like traumatic past. And at the same time, like, the thing that I think about Erza that I don't think a lot of people understand when you look at her character, I'm not gonna say everybody, like I know, I think any shipper, this is one of those things that shippers definitely noticed, but if you're just like reading the series and you're not thinking about it, you might not see the reason. And that being, the thing about Erza is very stoic. She's very like noble. She has this very like knight's code. We actually see it with Kyria. After Kyria like tortures her for a bit, she has a chance to pretty much just kill her in her sleep, but she's like, as a knight, I can't attack an unarmed sleeping opponent, like regardless of what she did to me. Which, when you look at her and you compare all these things, she also like she has this very ladylike demeanor to her at the same time, like a noble woman, but a warrior's kind of like spirit. She actually doesn't care about people seeing her naked. Like she hangs out with you know, half of her friends are dudes, just like out of the main cast, and then some of the people that intertwine. There's actually a side chapter where they're pretty much playing, was it King's Game, and they're all like pretty drunk, and Erza gets like, her last thing is she has to like walk home naked, and she's like, I don't give a shit, I don't care. It's because she looks at the guild members as family, and like it'd be different for like, other cultures, but I know like the Japanese, like for them, it's not like they're just walking around naked all the time, but it's completely different from with a family member. It's like, who cares? But that's how Urza sees it. She's like, I don't care, because she doesn't see them in any romantic or sexual way. It's like, who cares if you see me naked? But with that, any scene with Jalal just completely takes that noble, like majestic knight figure to her and reduces her into like a very shy schoolgirl that is, she's in the face of her crush and she just doesn't really know how to like deal with the situation. She becomes, she blushes like hard. She has a hard time trying to keep up with her words, unless it's like a casual thing, like she knows Jalal's going to be there, because she ends up actually having Jalal run into her a lot. Like I said, when she was walking home naked from the end of that game, it's like it was snowing too, and she's like, I don't give a shit, this is easy, and then just leaves. And then just the second, no, unfortunate for her, Jalal is there, and he's just walking by, and for her, she just can't take it, and she just almost like breaks of embarrassment. And there's actually a recent one too of where Juvia is like talking to her about like practicing kissing, and Ursa's just like, why would I need to do that? And then obviously, she thinks about Jalal, and she's like, I wish she knew her situation awareness, because she was like doing it to a window that was next to her, and then Jalal walks by, and it was just like, oh, you unfortunate soul. This poor girl, every single time she does anything embarrassing, the love of her life just happens to walk on by. And her relationship with Jalal is also very complicated because of, all the different plot twists and aspects about it. And they could be together, like they both love each other, but with Jalal, he's, he doesn't think he deserves her. He's still trying to atone for all the things he's done. And poor Erza, like, I wish she would just be like, I don't care, let's go. It's unfortunate for her, because she just, the thing when you look at like her versus like any other characters, there are ones that like they're ships, and I know like shipping can be kind of AIDS, but like actual like legit like the characters who they're they're gonna end up with, it's different than like a character. It's like, hey, that character smiled at the another one real quick, I guess I should draw fan art of them. But no, we all know that Erza and Jalal they're going for each other eventually. And then you have like Natsu and Lucy, they're always been very close, and there are some signs in the recent chapters where they're getting closer. Gadgil and Levy are about to have kids. Gadgil, like, he's come a long way, and then you look at Gray, and we know that Gray, the only thing left before he decides to be with Juvia is he wants to feel like he's strong enough to protect her. Whereas with Jalal, it just doesn't seem like he's ever going to think that he's done enough. And that's unfortunate for Erza, so I'm hoping at some point soon she just decides, like, enough's enough, stop, drop your pants. So your moping is over, you've done enough, let's go. It's time. But I've always really liked Erza. I think she's gotten a bad rap. I think a lot of people don't get that aspect to her, the fact that she's supposed to be this very almost invincible presence, like when you just like look at her, the way that she talks and acts, and the way that she just kind of presents herself. But then all it takes is Jalal to come in, and then that's gone, and she just becomes like a mess of her own emotions. Because I think that's the whole aspect to her that Kirishima was going for, is that regardless of how powerful she is, she's a very, very powerful wizard, very skilled swordswoman. She's got all this going on for her, but she's still a person, and obviously she's still got, very, very deep emotional feelings towards this person. But Erza, she's always been, in my mind, one of the best characters in the series. She's got her own good character arcs and good aspects to her story. She's still got stuff going on. I'm actually going to go over one of the things that I thought about going for this video, and that's like the whole situation with her mom, but I'm going to do it for a separate video because I want to look at like the different situations for each of the main cast, dealing with their own family members. But other than that, tell me what you think. Erza, like I said, I think that she just gets overlooked a lot, and I think people don't actually pay attention to what she's doing, but also just like assume that she's like unbeatable. Like really, the only time that she had that kind of like actual like unbeatable almost feel to her was in the Grand Magic Games. But the Grand Magic Games, like the whole theme was Fairy Tail was coming back from the bottom, and they were proving everything to every single person from around the continent watching the Grand Magic Games. So of course, like all these characters that were shitting on Fairy Tail and all these different members. Of course, now the Fairy Tail is going to be like, yeah, you guys probably shouldn't think we're trash after 7 years of you guys only being up there because we weren't here. And it was good to see those aspects of them, and even like what was her Kagura fight? She didn't actually win. Like Kagura got up and was still able to fight. It was because Kagura realized that Erza actually saved her at one point, and then she's just she had no want to fight her anymore. It was just like, I can't fight somebody that did so much for me. But like I said, drop a comment below. I mean, seriously, like she didn't win against Kyoka. They kind of tied, and then objective wise, Urza lost. She won against Jerome, but Jerome was like a small character in Avatar. She like lost the Nineheart, only beat Agio because of outside sources. Like she literally got turned into a slave by Kiri. I mean, she does not have nearly as good of a win-loss record as people like to think. Like I said, other than that, comment below. Love Urza. She's a great character. And tell me what you think. Like, well, one of the things just really quick is also, if you have any gripes for it, tell me in the comments. Like, I think people end up just kind of looking at, like, angry YouTubers, like, was it King of Lightning, and his horrible misunderstanding of, I gotta do a video on that, and how badly it, like, hurt the perception of so many that don't watch the series or read it, and just go off of, like, other people's opinions off the internet, never actually, like, trying something out for themselves. But whatever. Comment below. I really appreciate if you thumbs up the video, but from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.